Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bowhunter Chronicles podcast brought to you by Tacticam. Tacticam is by far the easiest way to begin filming your hunts. Whether it's the budget-friendly solo or the 4K 5.0, Tacticam has something for everyone. Check them out at tacticam.com. This year we're also working with Spartan Forge. Spartan Forge is up and running now. You can check them out at spartanforge.ai. Spartan Forge is machine learning for the deer hunter. It's the farmer's almanac on steroids. It's taken millions of data points of insurance information, car deer, accidents, wildlife biology, collared deer data, social media, and put it into figuring out what are the best days for you to be in the woods. You can check that out at spartanforge.ai, and it is live now. So you can use code Bowhunter to get 25% off at spartanforge.ai. Spartan Forge, find, fix, finish. This week we've got a Michigan guy on for you, Brandon Eagan. Brandon is one of these silent killers. So a guy you maybe never heard of, maybe you've just seen the pictures on Facebook. He killed 4 really great bucks in 2020. It's Kansas, Ohio, and then 2 in Michigan. The Michigan ones to me are the most impressive just because of the consistency and the pressure and kind of the way that he does it. First podcast, so he's a little nervous, but we try to get as much information out of him, and basically his deal is hunting fresh sign, and everybody says that, what's the freshest sign? So we try and figure out kind of his methods and kind of the way that he does that. And I think you guys are really going to get something out of this one. It's a little bit long, kind of comes out of his shell at the end. And I think we're going to have him back on to kind of expound on this and kind of how it transitions to other states. But man, we just really appreciate Brandon coming out of his shell on this one. But real quick, we got to give a shout out to our Patreons. So Patreon is a crowdfunding for podcasts. Basically, for the cost of a cup of coffee, $5 a month, like 17 cents a day, you help out the podcast. You help us with equipment, with the cost of running this show. If you're getting value out of this, if you're learning from this, consider that. You can check it out at patreon.com/Bowhunter Chronicles Podcast, or you can go to bowhunterchroniclespodcast.com and just click on that Patreon link and just sign up. And basically, it's like a raffle ticket. We give away some great prizes. This quarter, we're giving away a Mystery Ranch Sawtooth pack. I mean, that's like a $500 pack, and I'm giving you the guide lid for that one because that's one of the things that I didn't have on my trip to Colorado that I wish I did. So we're giving away gear that we use and that we know that you would like as well. We're also giving away a set of Badlands rain gear because that's what you guys asked for. So, I mean, right now, I think there's like 50 Patreons. So that's a 1 in 50 chance of, 1 in 51 with you for a $5 raffle ticket to win some really great gear. We also give away, we're partnering with Basemap, and Basemap gives away a pro package, which, allows all 50 states. It's cheap in its own right. I mean, if you just want to go to Basemap and buy that, it's $30 for the entire year. You can use code Chronicles online. You can't do it through your phone. You've got to go to the website. But you can save 20% on that, so it's $24 for the entire year, $2 a month to try Basemap. Basemap does everything any of the other mapping softwares do and more. I mean, there's so many layers, it's almost too much, but it's a great app, and we really like it. We're giving away one of those along with, they have a swag pack, so they give you a hat and a shirt and all of that. And speaking of shirts, I've got for anybody that orders sweatshirts, I'm going to be picking those up today. So I've got your sweatshirts. I'll be reaching out to you on those. But, if Patreon's not for you, no big deal. We appreciate every single one of our listeners. If you would just tell somebody else about the show, if you would just pass this information along and rate us. So on Apple, iTunes, click that 5-star review and write us a review. That would mean the world to us. But thank you for listening. Enjoy the episode. Hey everybody, Adam and John back with another episode of the Bowhunter Chronicles podcast. And today we're talking with another Michigan guy, quite successful. One of these guys who's, maybe lesser known, pretty quiet guy. We ran into him at the show in Grand Rapids a couple years back and was introduced to him, and then just started following him on Facebook. And over the last couple of years, it's like, man, this guy is just keeps putting down big deer, all over, Michigan. To me, when I see guys shooting big deer every year in Michigan, I start to pay attention. And this year was no exception. So we're talking with Brandon Eagan. So how are you doing tonight, Brandon?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. And it's his first podcast too. So, hopefully this isn't too painful for you. But like I said,
No.
If you like talking about hunting, it should be no big deal.
Yep.
So can you give us a little bit about a background on yourself and kind of like how you grew up hunting and your style a little bit?
Well, I'm originally from Florida, and we always, we grew up hunting, whitetail and hogs and whatever, mostly hogs though. We had hounds and stuff, and Dad, he had a few leases down in Florida that we would hunt whitetail, which, hunting whitetail and is very hard in Florida. But he would set some stands up and for me, and he would just drop me off, and he would mostly hunt out of a climber. But when I got older, when I got 13, I started hunting out of a climber and kind of just moving around, bouncing around. And I shot my first buck that year at 13 out of a climber, 7-point. So just kind of raised into hunting. And then I think we moved to Michigan when I was like 17 and kind of followed in the same steps, just bounced around in a climber all the time, just what my dad taught me. But it wasn't, at that time, it was just about shooting deer, we just shot whatever. I shot whatever, sometimes a few bucks a year and just does, just out there having fun. And then it just grew more of a passion as I did it, and just started wanting to learn more and get into bigger type bucks and stuff.
So real quick, just because one of my buddies hunts Florida, he says it's the hardest state in the U.S. to hunt. It's way harder than
definitely
anywhere. What's the difference between hunting Florida and then coming up to Michigan? What was your experiences?
We didn't have as much deer in our area, and it was a lot harder to get on deer than it is here. But like I say, I was young, I didn't know as much as I know now. And there was a lot of pressure down there. I think, just as much as Michigan, but just big, vast areas. And we could get into a lot of doe pockets, but there just wasn't a lot of bucks at the time. No one did no management or anything like that. So,
because he's always said, and I don't want this to be about like Florida, but so he's always said that he'd love for some big buck killer to come down and try their hand at Florida, where he hunts or whatever. Do you think with your skill set and like you said, you were young then, do you think you could go down to Florida and have the same sort of success that you've had across the Midwest?
Oh, I would say I could at least get on them. Killing a mature buck, could be difficult. But I wouldn't see going down there killing a 2-year-old deer. Would be probably easy, I would say.
That's awesome. Well, I might have a second podcast opportunity for you here already here
Okay.
in the first 5 minutes. So, but yeah, so you were talking about, coming up to Michigan and starting to make that transition from shooting, just any deer or whatever,
Yeah, I mean, I think I was around like 27. I'm 38 now. We just having fun, man. Just bouncing around. Didn't know anything about, this mobile hunting stuff now, and there wasn't nothing like that. Like a lot of these young guys can get on, Facebook or social media and learn so much so quickly now. We just, that's just how I was taught. Just to hunt out of a climber. Me and my buddy, we hunted out of a climber. We went around and we shot the first buck that come in, and we just, I mean, that's what we did. I mean, um, so when I started, I got where I wanted to start killing better bucks. Through the years, just shooting a lot of small bucks. I just wanted to shoot better bucks, and
so what kind of I guess when you like, okay, I think when you say that, I mean, everybody, I guess, gets to that point where you want to start shooting better bucks. So how did you implement that?
Yeah,
like,
what was the process?
Yeah, how did you go about that?
well, I just started researching and more like the hunting beast, and got online just like a lot of guys did, and was putting more of the puzzle together instead of just being mobile, which that was already come natural to me because I was already taught that, but I was missing a lot of, some of the steps, like here in Michigan, a lot of guys, I think they get a piece of public and they just, focus on this one piece of public, where I got, 50, 60 spots, that I've scouted over the years, over these last 10 years. And I'm bouncing around until I can find that hot sign. And if I don't find that hot sign, I'm out of there. I mean, I'll just pretty much, I'll go in there. If I can't find the sign I'm looking for, I'm walking out of there, scout my way out, and I'm to the next spot because I'm looking to kill a buck quickly. I'm not looking, I'm just looking to kill a 3-year-old buck here in Michigan. I'm not looking to, I'm not trying to hunt down a Pacific buck here in Michigan. So, where a lot of guys, maybe they're trying to hunt a Pacific buck, where I'm hunting more of a, trying to hunt an age class buck, 3-year-old or older. That's my goal. So pretty much what I do is I got some of these spots scouted out, and I found a lot of bedding areas, but some of these spots I got scouted, you don't find a lot of bedding area, like a lot of deer don't lay down a lot of sign. So over the years of just hunting these spots, I've, a couple of these spots I've learned, this is where this deer, a lot of these bucks are bedded.
So, like, what's your scouting process? Like, so for myself, like, I've just started to break down this big piece of piece of public that's got pressure everywhere. So I just went and pulled the camera today. Mm-hmm. It's been out there since end of August. And I went out there one time, October 8th, and just checked the camera and then turned around and took off. And it looks like, for me, there was one good buck in there, like right beginning of the season, October the 3rd. Then maybe October 20th, or no, I'm sorry, yeah, October 20th to maybe the 14th, I had a lot of daylight activity, and I found it's on a primary scrape. It's just a primary scrape I found over the summer. And so
just out of bedding.
It's about 200 yards away from bedding. So there's like a creek bottom. There's like cattails to a creek bottom that comes up on this big oak ridge. And this is like where the oak ridge meets this big grass flat. And the grass flat's probably 200 yards long.
So it's like transition.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
And so I'm starting to see like a pattern, and so it seems like the more pressure has pushed these deer back in there, and there's a reason that I've only checked it one time, is because
Right.
it's a half a mile no matter what way I try and get off of it, get onto it, and there's a piece of private right up next to it. But I think that guy is either baiting or something, because all the runways lead to his property, and his cabin is right there, maybe 300 yards from this spot.
He's probably baiting right behind his cab.
But nobody's. I had two people on this camera, both in the last week. So it was the end of gun season. Like people just giving it a Hail Mary, I think, just wandering around.
Wandering, going in there, yep.
Yep. So I think these deer are getting pushed in there. But like I was telling John before we started here, right? I walked around today and looked at, all the bedding and looked at the sign, like you were saying, how deer don't leave a whole lot of, or there's like some deer that don't leave a ton of sign, right?
You're right.
So I can tell where these branches and saplings are busted off, and then there's rubs everywhere and scrapes and stuff. And so I kind of have an idea of like what's going on, but I can't like
put the puzzle back.
Yeah, it seems like it's going to take me 3 more years to figure out. I was telling John, it's like I'm going to need like a ton of observation sits to just figure this out.
Yeah, definitely. A spot like that, I probably wouldn't even hunt. If there's a ton of pressure in there, I'm not hunting it. I'm moving on. I do not, put a lot of time into that. I'm looking for that spot. Sometimes these spots are some of the smallest spots, where a guy thinks, there's going to be a lot of guys in there because it's small. Looking for them overlooked spots, like everyone is. But I'm bouncing around, moving around, trying to find that buck that's laying down the sign that is almost saying, kill me.
So how are you like differentiating that, or like, how are you doing that scouting? Like, is it in the early season? Is it?
Well, I do a lot of early season scouting, boots on the ground, in the springtime, I'm going out looking at, old sign, but you can look at that old sign and that's cool. You got to be on the fresh sign at all times. It seems like, it changes so much here in Michigan, the pressure and one spot, a lot of these spots could be good, for a week and next week they're not,
Right.
I'm moving around, bouncing around until I find that sign to kill that buck. And most of the time, I do a lot of glassing, a lot of summer glassing, but just kind of summer glassing just to see, what bucks are in the area, if there's any good bucks in the area. But most of the time I got my stand on my back or my saddle. I'm going in there looking for that fresh sign. If you ain't on that fresh sign, you're just out of the ball game. And I think a guy just needs to bounce around more and move around so much until he finds that hot, fresh sign. And then when you're on it, stay on it for a couple days until you get them killed. Now, if I don't get them killed in a couple days, I'm out of there. I'm moving. So I give it 2 or 3 days, and then I'm going.
Yes, that's it's kind of like my thought process too. Like Adam, we kind of have our conflicting interests in this one property. It's like it just gets pounded with people. And there are good bucks out there, but it's like you can't just go sit in the same tree. You can't predict what the deer are going to do. They're there, but it changes pretty much weekly or daily. You got to go in and figure it out every time, and then you think you get it figured out, and then all of a sudden here comes someone walking in, and it's like, or bird hunters, or the same shit happens when we're out turkey hunting. Even it's like there's a ton of birds out there, but
definitely,
you just get. To me, it's like sometimes it's like it's not even worth it. There might be a nice buck there, but it's not worth it for me to go waste my time when I'm going to get screwed over.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where I think, you need to say, ditch that spot and just move on with, try to find that other spot.
Right.
I got spots here 30 minutes from the house all the way to 2 hours, 3 hours from the house. It all depends, with the wind and weather's like where I'm going to be at, but I'm going to be bouncing around until I find that buck. And if I don't find fresh sign as I'm going on in, like if I'm hiking on in there and I don't find that sign, I don't hunt that night. I just scout my way out, go back to the truck, and next day I put a game plan together and go into a different spot looking for that fresh sign.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that fresh sign. So like, what is it that gets your blood up? I mean, everybody wants to see, scrapes and rubs and all this stuff. And like you said, sometimes there's not, you're not going to see that. So like, is it big tracks or what? I mean, like, what is it that you say, like, when you walk into a spot, you're like, okay, I'm going to kill him,
A lot of times it's like when I come in there and I got, a good scrape, on the edge of a transition that looks like he could be bedded over here. Saplings that are busted off, ripped up. Normally that's a good buck. When them saplings are ripped, normally them are bucks with good tines, that are just ripped up really bad. Looking for them high rubs, just like everyone else is. But I just think I'm just moving more than most people and not focusing on one spot. But now sometimes, like we talk about, we don't see a lot of this fresh sign. A lot of times I'm in this spot as I'm scouting, maybe I don't find some fresh sign, but I catch a glimpse of a big buck, and then maybe I'll give it a sit and see what happens with it, So, there's so many scenarios, I guess, you can get into. I'm just looking for probably what everyone else is looking for, but.
Well, yeah, so that's one of the things, like for us on the podcast, is one of the things that I joke around with, like the answers from a podcast guest, and this isn't, it's not you, but like, so when I say, what about this? They say, well, it's situational. Or if you say, what's your number one piece of gear? Like everybody goes to boots, if you're going to spend money on one thing. So, I totally get it. And that's what we're trying to figure out for our listener, for the new guy trying to make that transition from, killing nothing to just killing deer, just, killing any buck to that bigger class of deer. Like, what is the thing? And you may have heard me chuckle in there when you said, just getting a glimpse of a buck, because that just happened to John, like, what, yesterday?
Yeah, yesterday. Yeah, yep. I was scouting in this spot that I went up to last night. I've hunted it for years, and it gets pounded, bow and gun. But it, every year it changes up a little bit. Like the guys kind of like, oh, there's a bunch of guys there last year, so now I'm going to go. So it ends up, I get up there yesterday, and man, there was a ton of fresh tracks. I would like it for, I'd like some snow on the ground right now. Normally that's what, I'm looking forward to, but
definitely.
There was no snow, but I actually took some video of it. Like the ground is just black, looks like a cattle path. And I got back in there, found some fresh rubs. The bark was tore off, fresh scrape. I'm like, man, this is awesome. And I'm like looking for a tree, and I know I'm close to bedding. Like it's red brush, and it's just looking just.
It looks like it, yeah.
Yeah, and I took one more step, and all of a sudden, busted out a buck, and I couldn't tell what it was. I could just see it had bones on its head. I'm like, man, damn it,
I do that a lot. A lot of times too, I'm looking to jump deer.
Right.
Especially, going into a spot, I'm looking, I won't stop until I start, jumping deer. Then I know I'm getting close to the area I need to be. A lot of guys set up because, they got some rubs here, but The spot looks good, whatever. I'm looking to be on top of them. And a lot of times I go too far, but I'm super aggressive. And if I burn that spot, I'm going to the next one.
But
So
it's also good though, because now like from the way I looked at it, and I think we've heard the hunting public, it's like, well, now I know that buck, when I see this sign, and I know it was a north wind, I know that there's been some hunting pressure, and literally, like I was close to the road.
Yes. Definitely.
Real close. So most of the guys aren't even going to look at this little spot. It's kind of like what you were talking about. They're going to go back past it, and that's what the deer are doing. They're just watching them walk by, basically.
Oh, definitely.
But they're going to be there, so now it's going to be like, okay, now I know exactly where, like, their bedding area in this scenario. It might not pan out, but I'll have a better idea.
You'll have a better idea next time you go in there.
Yeah.
And you find that, and then you don't have to go in so deep, and you could set up a little earlier and probably get a shot on them for sure.
Right.
Oh, definitely.
And so what's your thought process like as you're scouting in there, and then you said you like to jump deer? Like, I think a lot of people, like, when you start jumping deer, you're like, oh man, like I've screwed up my hunt, or maybe you're not far enough, where you were going. Like, so what's your thought process if you jump deer, jump a buck, etc.?
A lot of times, it doesn't bother me if I jump some, because I know I'm getting closer to where I need to be. And I've had bucks come back around, back to that bedding. A lot of times if I jump a good buck and I see him, I'll come back in the morning, and normally I can get a shot on him. He'll come back through in the morning if I jumped him in the evening and stuff, if the conditions are the same wind and whatever. So he might come back in the morning, which I've seen that. I've heard guys, have chances at him, right then, come back in an hour or two, but I've never had it happen to me like that. But I don't know. I just keep moving until I think I got right there on them green fresh rubs and them hot scrapes right there. I just keep moving in there until I think I need to set up, and it's more of a feeling than I don't know. I just have a natural eye for looking at a spot and trees where I need to set up based on wind and how to kill them. It's I just have a knack for it, I guess, but it's harder for me to explain, I guess.
Oh yeah, it's called experience, I think. I mean, like,
yeah.
My father-in-law's, and John could tell you this too, but like, he's killed tons of deer. But he's in that, he's what, 67 years old or something. And he's still in that any buck stage of his life. But he's the guy that just goes in. He just like the guy with the forked stick that finds water. He just walks in, picks a tree, and a buck will walk underneath, and he'll shoot it.
He's got luck. Got that luck. Yep.
But more recently, he'll shoot at it. Like, I don't know if it's his eyes.
I think his luck has run out on his shooting abilities or something.
I've had them years. For sure. Everyone goes through them years probably.
So with your mobile setup, you said you have either your stand on your back or your saddle. What is your preferable silent method of getting in there, getting close, and getting up a tree?
My go-to is my saddle. Now I've hunted out a lone wolf stand for a lot of years. I ended up switching over to the Arrow Hunter saddle. I got the tether platform beef sticks. That's probably my go-to setup, but I did shoot 2 bucks off the ground in my ghillie suit this year.
Sweet.
So I'm just always, I got a lot of things in my arsenal. So if I need my stand that day, I use my stand. If I need my ghillie suit or whatever, but my number one go-to is my saddle now. But plus, I got a boat and everything. That is, getting down them rivers into them, coming in the back door on a lot of these bucks is probably helped me out a lot. So,
And so I want to get into some of those kills this year. I mean,
yep,
you killed 4 bucks this year,
yep.
across multiple states. But before we get into that, like, is there, some guys prefer a certain time period to hunt? Is it the rut? Is it pre-rut? Is it, first thing in the season? Like, is there a time where you find it, like, I don't want to say easier, but, is there a preferred time where you think like you're more dialed in or more likely to have success?
I think I killed 3 bucks this year, before November 2nd. So, it seems like I always have luck around the 20th. I'm killing most of my bucks October 20th to the 22nd. When they start kind of getting in that, scraping, really getting, fired up a little bit. They're starting to lay down some sign and everything. Just because, most of the time I can't get out as early, with work. So I try to get all my work done and start hunting around the end of October now. So mid of October mostly. So.
Okay. And what are you seeing for pressure at that time? I mean, that's one of the things that, like we've always, taken the first week in November off. Well, it turns out that everybody else in the whole wide world does too. So, you go to Ohio or Missouri or, even around here, I mean, that's when everybody wants to be in the woods. So is I mean, are you just completely avoiding pressure, or are you
I'm,
noticing that there's guys in the woods at that time too?
I mean, there's guys all the time. I mean, I see, a lot of times if I go to this spot, there's always the same 7 pickup trucks there, or if I drive by, there's the same 7 pickup, trucks. No matter what day of the week, it seems like they're always there. Uh, so, I mean, the pressure's high, and especially this year, it seemed like there was a lot more pressure this year. But over the years of just finding these hidden spots, every year it seems like I lose one of my good spots, that I would say, that are just hidden, that I could take my boat to, or outwalk the next guy. But it's getting harder to do that because there's a lot of guys are really got the heart to get in there and get it done, now. So I always thought I could always just outwalk the next guy or out hunt the next guy. But that's getting hard now.
Well, it's our fault, and it's
Yeah.
base map and Onyx and all of that,
Yeah.
because we're getting guys like you on that are saying, okay, these are what my techniques are, and then you just have to pull up, look at your public, and then take what you said and take what Dan says.
It's a double-edged sword.
I mean, so we are empowering hunters, but we're also shooting ourselves in the foot too. So
Oh, definitely.
But
Yep.
So on that same note, like, I mean, it's going to be different for your home state. You can, pick and choose when you can hunt, like you said. But like, do you have a preferred time frame when you're going out of state?
when you're tagged out, right?
Yeah. When I normally, if I get tagged out, I'm headed out of state. This year I tagged out before November, so I got to. So I normally would like to go to like the Kansas sometime around the 15th, gun season here. So, but I got tagged out early, so I didn't want to be sitting at home. So I went November 1st, and I think it was the 30th. I think I went. So October 30th, I headed to Kansas. But I like to kind of take, my out of state hunts when it's gun season here.
Okay.
Because I don't like to gun hunt here anymore. I'm just too crazy and too much pressure.
Absolutely.
So, and I'm just not much of a gun hunter anymore.
Yeah, we're pretty much in the same boat, except for, John gives me a bunch of shit because I've taken the rifle out 2 times this year. So
yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm just, just rather bow hunt when it's more quiet and, more, I just prefer, bow hunting a lot
too.
more. Safer, yes. Yes.
Especially this year, like in Michigan, I mean, you can pretty much just shoot anything. If it's brown, it's
Oh,
down. So
yeah, yep.
so in the lower peninsula anyway, it's like
Yeah, Gratiot County here, I think you could shoot 2 spikes if you want. So,
right.
Well, and
yeah.
you don't even need a doe permit now. I mean, you can
Mm,
shoot with a rifle a doe on both your tags if you want to. So
yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's crazy.
So now, when you're talking about your sign, how you're looking at your sign, how you're doing your entrance and exits, how you're bouncing around. Um, I mean, whatever you want to do, however you want to do it, but let's take one of your Michigan kills and talk about, you know, that process, so like going into this
Yeah.
spot, what sign, where you were set up, kind of how you were set up.
Yep. So, my first Michigan kill was a 10 point. So, me and a buddy, I was hunting with a buddy that night, and we got to the parking lot and we started hiking back in there, and he found some fresh sign. And as we got, probably about a half mile back in there, so he took off and was going to set up somewhere around there. So if I always go with him, my buddy, I always seem like I always go farther and deeper because I think I'm more of a scouter than I am a hunter, because it seems like I always got to know what's around the corner. What's around the corner. So I keep going and keep going. And sometimes that hurts me because I end up jumping the buck. So he's more, he's got the sign, he sets up. So type of guy. So I always just leave him. Well, as I got past him, not too far, probably 200 yards, I come across 3 fresh scrapes. I mean, just tore down, just ripped up, just probably before I come through. So I was going to, I got hit, I had my saddle and I got up under a bush. This was on a transition, like a hard transition inside the woods, of like, brush, bunch of brush. And they were right down the edge of this brush. So I got set up under a bush and I could shoot like 30 yards to the first scrape. And as I'm sitting there for 2 hours, it just bothered me that I didn't keep going. So as I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, I know I'm going to shoot one here. I just had the feeling I was going to kill one on that scrape. So I'm sitting there and I got up, and after 2 hours of sitting there, and I had to go, investigate more. So I don't know why, but just how it, I don't know. I'm just intrigued with finding more better sign. Like I can be in a better spot, and that was probably the best spot to be in that night. So I ended up going about another 150 yards and found some just tore up rubs, probably the same buck, and another scrape. And I ended up setting up in my saddle down the edge of this transition, and I ended up having a couple little bucks come past me. I like hunting a lot of transitions, inside the hardwoods, different habitat changes, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I love that. Just downwind side of them, just always have a lot of luck with them. So I end up seeing a couple of bucks come right down that transition, and a couple of them hit that one scrape I was by. And then
Real quick, what date is this? So what time of the
this is
year?
probably around the 22nd, October 22nd,
Okay.
I would say, 23rd, right there. And it kind of it slowed up for about an hour, and this is in the evening. And I looked over and I seen a buck about 50 yards away on the other side of the transition coming, like angling right towards me. And it was that good 10 point. And he come up from he come from the north of me. So I know there's a bedding area up there that I've scouted a few years ago. So I figured he was up there. So that could have been the buck laying the sign. Well, I grunted at him and he wouldn't come in, and I just couldn't get a shot. It was kind of thick right there. And he ended up going back, and I think there was like a bean field way back there, going headed to some private. So the next morning, where I figured he'd come from out of that bedding, I went up there and sat in a small tree. And I had a south, and the bedding area is north of me, and I'm sitting south of the bedding area. But I had I believe it was a southwest wind. So it was just an off wind kind of blowing up off that bedding area. And I always kind of like to give them deer the wind, A lot of guys probably want to, a lot of guys want that wind in their face. I always figured, them big bucks want that wind when they're going to come out of that bedding, So if I can give them that off wind, if I can just get off, just manipulate that wind somehow, just get off this side somehow, I just feel that they feel more comfortable coming out. And that morning, I had 2 bucks come out of that bedding area and checked adjacent that there's a doe bedding area. And they come by and went downwind of that doe bedding area and come out of there. And that 10 point was there with another buck checking. They're kind of cruising a little bit, kind of, bouncing does around, kind of, not running or anything like that, just kind of getting in the mood, just checking things. So I ended up getting down about 11:30 that morning, and I think I went and got some lunch, and I was like, man, I don't know if I should go back there. I was thinking, I didn't want to. The wind kind of switched up a little bit, and I didn't really want to go back there. So I ended up talking myself in, and I moved over a tree and got that wind just enough off. And that buck come out of that bedding area again, and he just kind of browsed around. I was probably only set up 50, 70, 50 yards from him. And he just come out of that bedding area and browsed around, and he was going to go over and check that doe bedding area again. And he was just, eating around on some stuff, and he presented me with like a 25-yard shot, and gave it to him. So he went about 70 yards. He ran back up in the bedding area and died. So, but this was a bedding area I knew. I've scouted this area. A spot I knew over the years that if there's a good buck in there, he's probably bedded up there. So, over time of learning these spots, of hunting these spots, you learn some of these things.
Right.
So, and that was my second buck taken out of that bedding, out of that same bedding area. So
I got a few takeaways from that, right?
mm-hmm.
So, that just off wind, and then I've got a question too. So when I killed my buck this year, it was early season, similar, next to where these bucks bed in the early season. And we know that simply because, tons of sign, tons of guys, everything, but jumped the deer out of there a couple times. And so,
you're right.
And so, it's just kind of like an odd spot. And, the wind that day was super low. It was 1 mile an hour, bad. It was the wind that you don't hunt that on, but it was only a 1 mile an hour wind, and there's usually a draft. So I kind of figured it would offset, and that deer come right down. I shot him at 17 yards coming back to that bedding area. And so that was interesting saying that you're going to give the deer the wind. And that's, I'm not I said, before, like world's worst bow hunter, right? But the thing is he doesn't even disagree. He's like, oh, you're not that bad. He says, yeah, you're right. I believe the show.
I'm just thinking, no, I'm just agreeing with you, whatever,
Yeah. So, but that's what I say is like the deer are going to use the wind to their advantage. It's just whether it's a good spot for you to hunt or not. I mean, the deer is still going to move,
right.
That
well,
way.
It's like, when you look at a deer in its bed and it's got the wind on its back, looking and,
yep.
They're using the wind for their advantage. I mean, so if you're going to set up with the wind in your face, well, most likely that buck's not just going to walk, I'm just going to forget all that. There's a reason why he's a mature buck. Yeah. Now you'll get young, dumb bucks that don't know any better.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I don't believe a buck walks with the wind in his face, every time. But when he's in a pressured spot and he comes out of that bedding, sometimes he comes out to browse around or move around. A lot of times he's got that wind. And especially, if someone's, sat up on that bedding area before, he's going to, check that like a downwind of a doe bedding area. Sometimes they check, just for, pressure. They understand pressure. They don't understand boundary lines or anything. But if there's been pressure there before, they know. I've watched them time and time again come out and go right down a transition and check that whole transition with the wind blowing, in their face, to make sure they're safe, and then they'll move on and feed, right. Or browse around. So,
but another question is like about that fresh sign, because I was using that same area to hunt back further later in the year because I know that there's doe bedding past that, right? So right. I want to talk about time of year just a little bit, just for your knowledge and like the scenario is like it would have been probably November 9th or 10th, maybe further than that, but same story. Like, so kind of open hardwoods up against some brushy stuff. And I know that these bucks have bedded in there in the past. I killed a buck, less than 100 yards from where I was going in further.
Right.
And I come up on like, John and I were talking today about like fresh scrapes. Like I came on this, it was the freshest scrape that I've ever probably seen in my life. Like where the dirt was on top of the oak leaves. Like you could still smell it.
Yeah.
And so, I was hunting with my brother-in-law who's, he could be the world's worst bow hunter, but just for lack of experience, I guess. But like, he's like, well, that deer's already been here. Like, could have been 5 minutes ago. What's the chances that they're going to come back? They've gone elsewhere.
Right.
So how do you? I mean, you were talking about setting up on those super fresh scrapes. Like, what's your thought process in setting up on them like that?
Well, sometimes, just because that buck hit it doesn't mean that there's other bucks not in the area ain't going to hit it. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. There's probably multiple bucks hitting some of these scrapes, that down through there. Just like, this when I walked past some 3 scrapes and they were tore up, they had big tracks in them. So, that was probably the mature buck that went through there and freshened them up. But there could have been another, good buck come in behind them afterwards and hit him too. Just a lot of times, I've seen multiple bucks hit these scrapes, so it ain't just always just one hitting these scrapes. I've had bucks come in right behind each other numerous times and hit the same scrape. So,
okay. Yeah. Like I said, that was just one of those scenarios where like we were going back further, but we got to the spot like where we know that there was bucks in the area. Like, we were back there for a reason. We killed a bunch of bucks out of there already this year. And it's like, here's a sign that was literally like right now. Now, but that's what I was kind of getting at, like time of year, does that change? So like if you would have come upon that same thing, like later in November, which would be like maybe more of the rut type area, time frame where these deer are not necessarily.
Yeah, yeah. They're not necessarily together. They're more in fight mode, you know. Yeah, I probably would have just bypassed it and found something that hasn't been hit or maybe set up a little differently, for sure. I mean, especially if it was already hit, in November, maybe something, definitely something not hitting that again, they already freshened it up and moved on. But I mean, this was in October. So yeah, probably not in November. I would have probably just moved on and kept looking for that, good sign, a better sign, that he maybe wasn't a scrape that wasn't hit or try to go on to the next bedding area or something.
Yeah, and like I said, like, this is why like we like talking to guys like yourself. Like, there's guys that say, well, yeah, it's just, fresh sign, and I don't know, I know it when I see it. But like, given a scenario type thing, you can say, this is what I would do, or this is what I would do, because that's one thing that's hard to, like, I mean, you're talking about having a problem like trying to explain stuff, and it's like, well, sign in October 1st or sign when you're pre-scouting isn't
Yeah,
the
it's
same as like.
always different, in November or October's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
So when so you shoot this deer, and so your second deer that you killed in Michigan was like,
Yep.
I think to me is like kind of like a testament to you as like a hunter, just in a sense of like how you said, you're just looking for age class, you're not looking for a certain deer or whatever.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, definitely not looking for. I'm just looking for a 3-year-old or older here in Michigan. That's my goal. And I mean, next year, I mean, I've shot a bunch of 3-year-olds now, and I've shot some 4 and 5-year-olds in Michigan. But I mean, next year I'm even stepping it up, to a higher class.
But that deer, to me, like I said, why it's more of a testament is like how you're like, you're walking the walk, right? So a lot of people say, well, I want to kill a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old deer, but then one comes in with half of his rack busted off, and they're like,
Hmm.
oh, I'm not going to kill that one because, and so that second buck that you killed was
Yep, he
completely
had
busted off.
yeah, he was a half rack, and the story on that buck, I was sitting kind of a observation sit, and I kind of like to do this. I like to sit back, watch like a bedding area, you know, and if I see a buck come out of this bedding area, let's just say a southwest wind. So, and if I don't got another southwest wind until next week, I probably am not going to hit that. Whatever he did that night, I seen that buck on. I'm going to wait. I'm going to be patient and wait next week, and try to get him on that same type wind, and maybe just hope that I can get a glimpse at him. So like next week, so that when I seen him on a southwest wind that first day, I picked out a tree. I was kind of sitting back, and I picked out a tree over there where I could kind of move in closer. And I watched him come out of his bedding area, and it was kind of this thick brush, kind of had some grass like CRP, kind of like a pasture, like, and he was up by a highway. He was bedded up by a highway and some brush. So I watched him come out of this, the first day, and that was in the morning. So I went back there in the evening, and it was a southwest wind, and he come out of that bedding area. So I moved up about 100 yards. So I believe it was the 2 nights I had another southwest wind, and I had another tree picked out, and but it was a cedar tree, so I couldn't get into it. And like I say, there's hardly any trees out here you can get into. And so I just got tucked up, and he was taking the same trail every time on a southwest wind. So I got tucked up in the cedar tree, and there's only one spot where he would walk by down this trail in this opening I could shoot. So when he come down that opening, I shot him. But when I first seen him, he had a big spike on that one side. So that was like a week before that, he busted all that off. But I was still happy to get him. I mean, he was a mature buck.
Right.
A lot of times I always go, if I see him on that same wind, I'll go back. You know, if I see him on that wind that one day, I'll go back on that same exact scenario almost, you know, if that makes sense. I don't know. Same
Right.
conditions,
Same conditions.
same wind. I just have a feeling that, that's what
Yep.
he likes, and that's why he's moving on it, He just feels comfortable.
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense.
a lot. Instead of seeing a buck, and a lot of guys see a buck, and then they get in there and they just start hunting them. Then they end up, either blowing them out, or, or he doesn't come out of his bedding area, or what. Be patient, and just, if you got him on that conditions, obviously he likes that conditions. He's moving in daylight on that condition. Try it and see, sit back, watch them, and then make your move and go in there, and make the kill.
So for all of us, that are coming up, or that are trying to learn, or that are listening here, like on that scenario, you say that you're going in there on the same wind, you're sitting back, you're making that, and it's all, it's all freaking backstraps and roses or whatever when you when you freaking a story like this. Let's say you go back in there and you kill them. Like, what's the percentages on that? Like, because you say you hunt, a couple days in a row if you're not, getting them move on to the next spot. Like how often does that pan out?
Well, it's work. Sometimes, I'm super aggressive. It all depends on the buck, to me, I guess. Sometimes I'm real aggressive, move in hard on them and just get them killed. And then on the other hand, if I feel like this buck is only wanting to move on this wind, and because I've sat some of the this spot before, I've sat before, and I've seen other bucks move on this wind in there, and other winds I just have not seen the bucks come out of there. So, like, I think some bedding areas are more wind Pacific, so they're there on that wind. So I just kind of figured, with that spot, I would probably hunt them that way, just because the bucks in the past, I killed a good buck almost the same exact way out of that same bedding area. So I just don't know if it just sets up better for them bucks to come move on that certain wind in that area.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, so like John, we talked about it on a previous podcast or whatever, but like he saw basically, I mean, almost to a T, like what you said. This buck came out of this bedding area on this wind, and then he freaking takes a hiatus and goes to the UP, and then the next time he comes back in there, and there was probably that same wind a couple times while he was in the UP.
Yep.
Somebody went in there and threw up a rifle blind right inside the bedding area.
Yeah.
And so
smack dab in the middle of the bedding area.
Then
oh my gosh.
A big steel, like homemade with like a friggin' armrest or rifle rest on it,
Oh,
right in like the cedar, right like where they were coming from. Like I'm like, oh, so it had to be at least 2 guys to get this thing up in there. And
yes,
so I'm like,
yes.
well,
Well, did they kill the buck?
I don't know. I got in there.
Probably not.
No, probably not. They had to have blown them out of there, but
Mm-hmm.
and it was right on it was just like a perfect little sneaky spot to get in, and when I went in there was like no doubt in my mind. I'm like, I'm killing this buck tonight. Like everything is the same. Like it's a south wind. He's gonna come out. I'd moved over. Like I'd marked like you said. I'd marked the tree where I needed to be.
Yep.
And he come out. The first time I had seen him, or before, right, the sit before that, it was like an hour and a half before dark. Like, so, I mean, it was super early. He just come out and just walking, taking his time, like he had no cares in the world. And so I
Right.
got in there extra early, and I was just like, man, this is a done deal. Like there was just, nothing's a done deal, but if there was, that was the scenario. Like I was just so confident in the setup, and then I'm like, I got my camera and I'm panning out. I'm like, man, it's just, where is he? What's going on? And I'm like, then I got my binos out and I'm like looking out in the bedding area,
Looking, yep.
and all of a sudden I noticed something in the tree. I'm like, are you shitting me? That was not there the last time.
Oh my gosh.
And so I bust out the video camera and I'm like zoomed in on it. I'm like, oh yeah, son of
Yeah.
a.
So what'd you do? Just get down, or
I ended up
did
sitting
you
there, just
sit and toughing it out?
yeah. I'm like, but at that point I was like,
I probably would have just got down and either
I think,
went scouting or just headed to the truck.
yeah, I thought about it. I was like, oh man,
That's the life of the public.
Right.
Just move on and head to the next spot.
Yeah, that was
But man, it does put you down when something like that happens. I mean, I've found a lot of these good spots, and every year, like I say, it seems like I lose a good one every year,
yeah.
and then I got go find more spots.
So I want to. One of the things also, I think, like the further I go in this journey, and like, John's, he's a little bit older than me, not terribly older than me, but like I think he has he grew up like hunting public, grinding it out, learning, and then like making his own decision to like target bigger bucks. And like for me, it's just like, man, forever it was like, man, I just want to kill a deer with my bow. And I think I was I hunted since I was 12 years old, in Michigan. And I think I've killed my first deer with a bow when I was like 20.
Okay.
And then, just progressively getting better. And then, I killed, when I killed my first buck, like on my own, like I picked the spot, like that's, that was what for me was like, now I feel like accomplished. And then like, now I'm trying to break down these pieces of public to kill one on my own, because it seems like every time I go, I'm going like with somebody else, and yeah, I'm in the right spot or whatever. It's not like somebody's putting me in a tree and then I kill a deer. It's like go over there somewhere, and I get up a tree and I kill, and that's cool. But like I want to, like right now, my goal is like to take one of these properties that I've, nobody's said, okay, this is where we used to hunt, or this is the spot.
Right.
And break it down. And that's kind of like where I'm at, like right now. And that's the hardest thing is.
You're focusing on more of a section, that you got picked out, and you want to kill a buck out of that section.
Yep.
Yeah. I see a lot of guys do that. I mean, that's just not my style to do that. And there's a lot of spots, that you can go into a section and break down and hunt over the years, and you'll learn it. I think I can learn more faster by just bouncing around and catching a glimpse of something and and you can find better spots instead of just picking this spot and staying there. I see a lot of guys doing that.
Yeah, I think, and that's kind of like what I was getting at is like I think that's what I've been focused on, but like the more I'm listening and like paying attention to like the guys that are like killing consistently, and they've got I think Dan says 30 spots at all times, and you said
Oh
a
yeah,
number of like 50 spots, and like the thing is like I'm listening to like the guys from the Whitetail Experience, and they're saying like I'm getting up at 1 a.m. I'm driving 3 hours, and like
yep.
you're talking about anywhere from a half hour to 2 hour drive or whatever, and the like Parker McDonald down in Alabama, he's he's getting up at midnight and driving, and then taking 5 mile boat ride and doing all this stuff in his kayak, and I think that's where like I'm
I think you're
lacking.
missing, yeah,
Yeah,
lacking, yeah.
is like because for us like a 3 hour drive will get us over into Detroit, Lower Michigan. I mean it's 3 hours to Indiana from where we're at.
Right. 3
Oh,
hours to the
definitely.
bridge.
We
Basically.
we can get
Yeah,
into some
you,
different areas.
yeah. Keep bouncing around, be aggressive. I mean, just move around, bounce around. That's, yeah, like I say, I'm not afraid not to hunt that night. I mean, if I go into a spot, if I'm going into a spot that I don't know, and I'm looking for that fresh sign like everyone else is, and I don't find it, and that doesn't mean that there's not a big buck in there. I mean, there could be a giant buck in there, just ain't laying down the sign, or I didn't catch a glimpse of him. But I'm looking for that buck that is killable,
Right.
because my goal is to kill a buck that I can get on. He's laying down the sign, and I can kill him. I'm looking for that good buck to kill, and that's probably why my success is moving around. I got my kayak, I mean, I got my canoe. I'm canoeing down to a couple spots, I'm always checking spots. I'm always scouting. I guess you call it scouting. You're always scouting around, moving around, finding that buck where he's laying down the sign to kill him. You know, um,
So as you're bouncing around and you're looking for the sign, the sign's telling you
yep,
that the deer's killable, whatever. Um, as you're breaking that down, you obviously you're playing the wind, but are you
yeah, oh, definitely.
as you're going into these spots, are you like if you're going to go to a new spot or a new state or whatever, are you looking at certain terrain features like this is where I'm going to focus, or how are you finding the sign?
A lot of times, I'm looking for, a lot of times I look at the public, but I look at the surrounding properties that are around it. If it has good private property around it, if there's a good draws coming into that public off the private, or good fingers, or something. I mean, a lot of times, a lot of these bucks are bouncing back and forth from the private and the public. So I'm looking to get away from the guys, looking for these spots that, like everyone else is, you know, sometimes it's not always deep in there. Sometimes it's just off to the side, or, but my, most of the time I'm looking to get in there deep. That's just me. I'm wanting to, like I say, I'll walk the hunter, but I don't know. I just travel through there, just walking. I normally got the wind in my face at the time if I'm walking through there, just looking for that sign. And
Right.
I'm walking through there, definitely not like, a human, but walking through there at a good pace, but trying to be quiet and moving around. And then when I feel like I'm getting closer, then I'll start slowing down and everything. There, based off wind and everything is in, where I would go, and spots I got marked on the map, where I would check out first.
And what spots are you marking on the map? That's kind of like what I'm I'm getting
You
at
know,
for the
if I'm hunting like river bottoms or stuff, you know, oxbows or I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain, but
You know it when you
I
see it for you, right?
yeah, exactly.
One thing, so like when you're doing all these hunts and sits, observations, and then hunt scouting. Now, one of the common things that like the guys that we've talked to that are successful, like you, consistently, most of them can, uh, most of them have a logbook. Do you log any of your stuff, like information, or you just keep it all upstairs?
No, I just keep it upstairs. I don't log a lot of stuff down. I have pretty good memory when it comes to, you know, if I seen a good buck here or there.
Okay.
You know, if I'm going out of state, you know, I definitely got a bunch of pins marked where, you know, I think that, you know, would be, you know, bucks would be bedded, you know, based on some wind futures and stuff.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, because like I said, there's some guys that are like, I mean, it's almost like they take an engineering standpoint and log all the data, and then, but for me, it's like I think Adam and I talked about in one of our podcasts after we had the thing with the hunting beast, and I was like, man, we need to start doing a logbook, but it's just like, man, that's just so
Yeah.
much more shit that we got.
Yeah. More you got to do. I try to keep it simple.
Yeah.
I mean, I own my own business. It's kind of, you know, I don't got time to be doing all that. I just, you know, I think hunting's is, you know, can be simple. I think, you know, as hunters that a lot of hunters, they make it more difficult and overthinking things, you know, which I had not, you know, I'm always thinking, how can I kill this buck? Where can I set up? You know, but sometimes we get in our mind and it's like kind of like a mind game. We overthink it too much, you know.
Right.
Get in here on this wind and get them killed.
Right.
well,
So that's where like the experience of just being a hunter,
Yeah.
not, just.
well, and I think that that's one of the things that I mean, I'm looking at my laptop right now. It's in front of me, and I was showing John like all these pictures, and like again, like I'm trying to break down this piece of public to figure it out, but I'm trying to figure it out from like when I listen or when I talk to guys like you to say, okay, like, so what would they do? What is going on here? But like right now, I've got all these, I've got 2 shooter bucks at least on camera, and one of them still alive as of 4 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking, well, if I don't go in there and kill him, he's going to make it till next year, and he's going to be a great buck.
Oh, great buck, yes.
So how do I go in there and kill him? Like, where is he? And that's, I think that's the problem for guys like me and guys like our listeners, and the guys that haven't like
figured out the puzzle.
Like, well, but like when you want to take it to that next level, it's like, okay, so before I was just like, well, how the fuck are these guys killing these big bucks? And then I talk to them and I say, okay, well, they're doing this, and like, so okay, now I'm finding the sign, but I'm putting out a trail camera, I got nothing, and so now I'm like, okay, so now I got the camera on the spot, and I got these deer, and I got all sorts of bucks on this camera, and I got multiple bucks, and so I'm in the right area.
Now it sounds like you just gotta get in there and figure it, like,
but
just hunt it.
Yeah, just figure it out,
Yeah, and two, with them trail cameras, I don't run a lot of trail cameras. I kind of like the unknown. So, so maybe that's why, I can just forget about this public better than you can, because, well, you got, 5 shooter bucks to you in there, and I don't see, he ain't laying down no sign. So in my mind, well, there ain't no good shooter bucks in here. I'm out of here.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I'm not running trail cameras. Now, I do have a couple cell cams I run, and I run them in mostly spots I know. So that I already know that there's good bucks in, and If I get a picture of a buck, then I'll go in there and hunt them, you know. But I already know the area. I've already spent time in this area, you know, by sitting in this spot. Either I found a good fresh sign in there one day and I sat it and seen some, you know, seen some bucks cruising through, and over time you just learn a few spots like that. But you know, if that buck ain't laying down the sign and you don't know where he's at, I mean, only thing you can go do is know where these bedding areas are and start hitting these down one of these bedding areas and maybe catch a, you know, glimpse of him, or and find where he's living, I guess.
Right.
I mean, if you ain't laying down no sign, like I mean, I got a spot that absolutely you will not find a bed in. There's one big rub in there, and it gets hit every now and then, but some of the biggest bucks, I mean, couple big shooter bucks, mature bucks, lay in this spot, and there's hardly any sign. And I come across it one day. I just was canoeing, and I seen a buck stand up in the spot, and I went investigated it, you know, scouted on through there, and I couldn't find no sign. So I'm like, man, he's obviously sitting in this spot for a reason. So I ended up just sitting in that, and it was on a river, and I set it on a south wind, so my wind was blowing in my face, and it was, you know, blowing, you know, to the river. I sat up on the edge of the river, and so I ended up sitting this a couple more times, you know, on a northerly wind where I kind of went, you know, up and around, cut up around the bedding area, and blew it up over to this private spot. And I wouldn't see anything. So, but I seen this, you know, mature buck. This is why I'm trying this out, even though I didn't find the sign. So they only bed there on a south wind. And the reason why is the farmer, he lives up north, south of there. So when he comes back to hunt, they know when he's coming in, and I'm accessing off the river and coming in the back door. So they're actually looking at the river when I'm coming in. But they're, you know, bedded up in there about 100 yards. But when the farmer comes down through and he goes to his stands, the wind is blowing right back to him. So them deer know the most of the pressure is up from the private on this situation.
Right.
And I'm coming in the back door and I'm setting up, and they are not laying down no sign at all. But I've actually shot a good 8-point out of that bedding area where the bucks were going in and grabbing does and bringing them back into the bedding area to breed them. So they were going. There was a doe bedding Jason to it during November 7th. They were going over to this doe bedding area, like 100 yards away, bringing them in there and breed them in their bedding area. They didn't hardly have to go far. Everything was right there. And I access off the river only on south winds coming in there, but there's no sign. They never leave no sign in there. But I just kind of come across this spot on accident.
Right.
You know, I seen a buck in there.
And so do you think that it's that there's not, like, this is just kind of like a transient area? They just use that, like if it was a north wind or something, they would be elsewhere?
I think they're bedding somewhere else. I think they're keeping tabs on the private land guys, bedding there on the south wind, and they just feel real secure there. And no one, you know, the pressure's more on the private than it is on the public, because if you don't got a canoe, you can't get to the spot.
Right.
So I just think they were keeping more tabs. They had more, the more pressure was on the private, but they were bedding there on only on that south wind. And I've sat it on other winds. I've only seen these bucks, and there's always a good buck in there. I had a 20-inch wide 9-point in there this year, and I almost wish I didn't shoot that half rack buck because I had a cell cam in there, and that's one spot I put a cell cam because they don't lay down a lot of sign in there. So when I get a picture of a good buck in that spot, then I know to go in there on a south wind and hunt it. So I think some maybe not as much in these outer states, but in these pressure states, a lot of these deer are bedding in certain bedding areas on certain winds.
Right.
Based off of pressure.
Well, I mean,
I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know, just what I've seen.
oh yeah, I mean, that almost seems like, if guys are paying attention to all of this stuff, right? So, when you say, well, you want to get the overlooked areas, you want to hunt the bedding on this wind, the deer are patterning the hunters. All of this stuff, that you're saying makes sense. And what I was going to say is, like, for a guy who doesn't do podcasts or anything like that, I mean, you're really falling into it, putting it like kind of step by step. And we've been, it's an hour and 20 minutes we've been talking about hunting here. So I'm not sure if you're
No, I'm not keeping track, but I just, to me, it's something that it comes natural. I watch detail. I think as a young hunter, someone probably getting into it, they need to be more detailed about it. I mean, watch detail. Why did that, why is that buck moving there? Analyze it, when you seen this buck, note it in your, on a note or in your brain. I've seen this buck on a south wind, and if you go there on a north, on a west wind, and you try to set up in there and you don't see anything, then well, maybe try to get on a south wind. And I don't know, just try things. I mean, don't be afraid to try things.
I think that's the key, is don't be afraid. There's so many people, and I was one of them, like, man, I don't want to get down and move, or, it's like, I'm here, I just got to sit, or I don't want to walk over there. It's like, screw it. What are you going to do? You can bump them? If not, I mean, you're learning something.
You're learning. Yeah. You always need to be learning.
Don't look at it as a negative. Look at it as a positive. Take the information that you learn from it and note it, whether in your brain or in a logbook.
So exactly.
Well, it's like you're reading my notes here, because like I said, I don't want to keep you too much longer.
No, I don't care. I got all night.
But so, like, one of the things, like, as we kind of like bring everything full circle here, right? And the other thing I say is, do you have like tips for beginners, like top 3 tips, right? So what, I mean, you just said, analyze everything, think about it. But like, when because one of the other things that I think is really like commendable about you, following along with your Facebook and stuff like that, is, you're tagged out in Michigan, but you're taking other hunters out and, getting them on deer and, helping them. So for these guys that are having problems, or that are like, needing your assistance essentially, what would you say to them, or what are some of the, what are some maybe like 2 other main points that you're saying, hey, maybe try this, or, these are things that have helped you, like, kind of along the way?
I think that things that help me, I mean, I've probably, don't be afraid to bounce around. I mean, I keep saying that. I mean, but I just think that's, a lot of my success. Be aggressive, where a lot of young hunters are not aggressive. They're afraid to move. Like John was saying, he's afraid to move, afraid, to bump deer. Don't be afraid to get in there and just try new things, I guess. look for, don't get focused on one spot, I guess,
Yeah, that's
um,
another thing too. Is like people, especially like the new guys or even some of the old guys, they just have their spots. Like we're going hunting, whether it's a certain wind or not. They just go and sit in the same tree stand, or I think a lot of them had to switch it up this year because of the bait. A lot of the people
older guys,
used to just throw out a bait pile and go sit their stand and wonder why they everything comes in right at dark.
Well, I want to say this though, and like this would be for me too, and I think one of the major hang-ups about that whole just like being, have a bunch of spots or bounce around or whatever is for like a new hunter or a guy that's never killed a buck, or is trying to target another age class of buck where they're not necessarily confident in, right? So it's easy to say, well, everybody would say, well, I want to kill a 4-year-old, I want to kill a 3-year-old. I mean, everybody can say that, but if you lack the confidence in quote unquote your spot, right? How are you? I mean, what do you say to the guys that say like, well, how am I going to go to this spot and break it down if I'm not even doing a good job over here in a place that I know well, or whatever?
Right.
The confidence piece.
Yeah. I think confidence comes with, hunting over the years. Definitely this just didn't come overnight of killing good bucks. I was that guy, just trying to kill a buck at, at that time too, I was just like them guys. I just think that I had a harder work ethic than a lot of guys. I mean, I don't know. I'm just trying to get in there and figure it out. I wouldn't even know how to explain it, I guess.
Well, I guess I'm thinking of my own like personal journey on this, and like again, like I said, like as I talk to guys like yourself, and like I try to like unpack it, like I have like all these revelations, right? But it seems like you can't be quote unquote afraid to fail.
Yes.
Because like if you're trying to improve and you're saying, okay, well, I'm going to take each one of these things as learning experience, then I didn't really fail. Like I need to figure out what I learned and how I can adjust from the net, for the next time, I guess. But that's where it's hard to be like, well, fuck, if I'm always just adjusting, like I'd like to kill something too,
Yeah, I know. I got a lot of young hunters that go out there and they walk through the woods and trying to find find the sign. I think it's something that you just gotta kind of learn and get a knack for yourself. We could talk about it all day and try to explain it to this guy, but if he doesn't have the heart and the will to get out there and just try to exceed and keep moving forward, then he'll probably never move forward or kill that buck,
Right. The other thing too, I think, is one of the keys is that a young hunter, I mean, especially it's so hard now.
Wherever they're at in their journey.
Like, or a new hunter, yeah. Young as in new to the sport
of killing
big
bucks.
That's that's what my point is. With social media and everything right now, everyone posting pictures of big bucks and stuff. Well, if you never killed a big buck and you get on a big buck, most likely you're not going to kill it because you're going to be so amped up. You need to just get out there and get some under your belt. So get out there and don't be afraid to shoot a doe or a small buck. Like you said, you started out just killing, deer.
Just killing deer. Just go out there and have fun and kill deer. I mean, that's what probably made me the hunter I am now, because me and my buddy, we just went out and killed deer. I mean,
and you could get on them, right? I mean,
and get on them. We probably didn't do hardly anything right, but we was killing deer.
Right.
We probably at the time we weren't even playing the wind or doing anything, but we had the heart and the drive
Right. And then
to get out there and hunt one down.
right. And with that experience, then you could take that experience and build on it. And
I
it's
think,
like,
yeah.
and that's kind of like when Adam was talking about Uncle Frank, like Uncle Frank was a killing machine. He just
Yep.
never got out of that stage of it. Like he just went out and killed everything that walked underneath him.
But he has
Yep.
the biggest smile whenever he does
Oh,
it. There's not like there's no remorse at all.
There's nothing wrong with that.
yeah.
He's like, well, you can't eat the
No,
horns.
I don't. Yeah, I know guys just like that. My neighbors are like that, and I graduate them every year. But them guys, they just don't want to do any. Not to say they don't want to kill a big buck, but they're happy with their mentality. They're happy with that, smaller class buck. I think as anything in life, business or as a hunter, that I think that, you need to step up your game every so many years, set goals, and move up.
I think part of it too is like, you got to be able to sacrifice some stuff too. Like you might have to sacrifice not killing a deer this year if you're going after that mature buck, where if that 3-point walks under your stand, you're like, oh, and you just can't hold back. Well, then you got to be happy with that choice. But
you got to be happy with it. Yep.
And so, that's part of it too. I mean, it just got to be what your personal goals are.
Well, and that, like what you're talking about, like I mean, this whole like little segment, like conversation is like, that was my fucking day, man. Like,
yeah,
that was like, I drove 45 minutes, sweated my balls off, had all my stuff on my back, walked out there, got my camera, and I was like, this isn't the spot. And I walked, and I walked, and I walked, and I walked. And I turned around and I walked back to the truck. I mean, it wasn't today. It wasn't going to happen. I was trying to figure it out, but it was like, I could have got up any of those trees, but it wasn't going to be fruitful.
Right. And, yeah.
And nobody ever wants to go with me when I go out there. So, I mean, it's like.
Well, I think that, when you find the spot, it's a feeling. You just know this is the spot, you just get that second sense, I guess. I'm in the right area, I feel like, I'm going to kill tonight. But if you're not feeling it, then you need to get out of there, as far as I'm concerned. Because I go into spots all the time like that, just not feeling it. And I've sat up before, on good sign and just get down. I'm just not feeling it. I just don't feel like this is the right area, the right spot. And guess what? There probably could have been, a beautiful 3 or 4-year-old walked into that spot and I got down. But if I'm not feeling it, you probably need to move.
So I got a question for you just on like that note, and like it we really haven't talked about it on the podcast. I've been messing around with it, but like I got the full draw on a 100+ inch deer this year with my second tag, and if I'd have been where I wanted to be, one more tree, it walked right underneath it. But I just felt like the tree didn't have enough cover. Like I wasn't, I looked at it, and and that's what Frank is really good at is looking at the tree and saying like, this is the tree, and like sometimes it like speaks to you. And so one of the things I've talked about with a lot of other podcast guys about like bringing on some like serious like killers, having a conversation about like instincts versus tactics. Right. So
right.
Like when you go in and you feel it, like you said, like about like those scrapes and like stuff like that, or like where like the book says you need to be on this day or whatever.
Yeah. I've done that a lot. I think a lot of guys do that where they second guess themselves and they move over. So if you get that instinct, and just because it doesn't have much cover, or if it says, what I've learned in the past, if it says set up right there, I'm setting up. Because about 3 years ago, that same scenario happened to me on a giant buck here in Michigan. So I was, this spot is more of a farm country spot, and early season's always a good spot. If there hasn't been anyone in there, it's got a lot of underbrush, a lot of trees you can't get into in there, that you can't hang a stand in. So I find a lot of deer in these type of spots. So this farm country spot, they plant corn, and there's a cornfield, and I get going down the edge of the cornfield, headed in there. It's an east wind, and the wind is blowing right in my face. Soon as I step inside the woods, there's all kinds of sign. And I think it was the second week, I didn't see any boot tracks of anyone in there, anything like that. And this buck has got every sapling ripped up and twisted off. And I knew this was a big buck, because bucks that do that normally got big tines. So, just ripping them up. And because a little, year and a half year old buck, he can't rip them saplings. He can shred them up, but he ain't going to rip them and break them off. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I get to the spot, I see the sign, and all I got is this little tree. So as I'm sitting there, going about to set up, I take all my stuff out, get off my back, and I was hunting on my lone wolf at the time, and I'm only going to be able to sit about 5-6 foot off the ground. So as I'm about to set up, I see 2 year-and-a-half-old bucks coming up to the cornfield out of this, suspected bedding area. And there was a tree down there. So actually I kind of hunkered down. They kind of spotted me, but I just kind of hunkered down and didn't move. And there was a trail that kind of come around that bedding area, and I thought them deer were going to come around, to that sign right there. I'm thinking, well, I'm going to kind of hog it all, Once these deer leave, I'm going to move down 50 yards to a tree that I can get a little higher and everything. And I'll still have the wind in my face in this spot. So I ended up packing up, and once some bucks left, I ended up packing up, moving down 50 yards. And I said, I can shoot over here to the right, I can shoot over here to the left, I'll kind of hog it all. And I've learned over the years that's probably not the best thing to do. When you see the sign right here in front of you, you set up on that sign right there. You don't be a hogger, try to hog all the trails. So I sat up in that spot. I'm thinking, well, he might come around where them year-and-a-half-year-olds come through, but I know that wasn't their sign because it was too big a sign. And there were some real big rubs, really high too. So I knew it was a real big buck. So when I sat up over there 50 yards away, about an hour into the hunt, it was kind of raining, really nasty, east wind, kind of cold the second week of season. I look over about 20 yards away, and I moved up a little bit. About 10 yards where that tree was, kind of not in front of it, but it's kind of side of that sign. Well, when I moved up, this buck, he was coming right down the edge of right where he made all that sign, walked right in front of that tree that I would have sat up first, and come right behind me. And I heard a stick break, but then he caught my wind because I was, like I said, I sat a little forward now. And it was about 170 class inch buck. And I turned around to shoot him. If he would have given me a couple more seconds, I probably got an arrow in him. But the whole story was I should have sat up in that first tree where I had the sign as soon as I walked in. I second guessed myself, and then I tried to to be a trail hog, try to shoot to every trail instead of set up on right here. He's going to come right here in front of me. I'll kill him right here.
Well, I'm glad I'm hearing this right now because I trail hogged the buck that I killed this year, as I had buck
Yep.
sign going this way and the main trail going here, and they kind of intersected, and I just got in between them and killed that buck. But
and you can,
but
don't get me wrong.
But this story sounds eerily familiar to me.
Yes.
John, do you know what I'm talking about? So right when we first started this podcast and I started down this road of like listening to like actual big buck hunters,
Yep.
same scenario, big frickin' ag area, cornfield on one side, alfalfa out in front. And like 2 days before the season, I saw this big buck. I mean, big for me, but good buck.
Yep.
And so I was like, well, I looked at the map and I'm like, okay, well, he's probably here. I couldn't hunt it until like the third day of the season or something like that. So I go in there, the wind is good. Go in from downwind side of where I think that the deer is going to be laying. And there was a cornfield there. Well, they cut the corn in that 2 or 3 day span. So I'm like, I walked 500 yards across the cut cornfield with the wind in my face. I walk in there. There's no sign or anything, but I like kind of like what you were saying earlier is like I saw the buck, right?
Yep.
I walk in there, and this is before like stand and sticks. I had my lone wolf climber because we were hunting out of climbers, and
climbers. Yep.
That's a cat's ass. Well, all these trees are like 4 inches in diameter.
Yep.
And then I'm standing on this little micro ridge, which is probably like push-ups from when they made these fields. And there was one tree that I could probably have got up, but I would have been, if that buck walked down the ridge right there, I mean, his antlers might have hit my tree stand. Like, it was like,
oh my gosh.
So I'm like, I can't hunt here, right? That's the only tree. So I'm like, well, there's trees, and there was this little kind of like grass field with some sparse brush and stuff right there. So I'm like, well, if I walk across here, there's big trees over there. I took one step into that little grass field, and that fucking buck stood up 60 yards away and busted out of there. And he was probably like 130 class buck, and I'm pretty sure a kid killed him in gun season with a bow. The next year at 162.
Oh my gosh. Just a Michigan giant.
And I was just, but that's what hooked me on this whole thing of like, I got to get sticks. I got to go
get real mobile.
You got to
get mobile,
I got to get down this rabbit hole. But like, but what you just said, like, I'm like,
Yep. Now if I got something like that, and I know I'm coming into something like that, I'll just sit on the ground. I mean, I've switched to my brother. He hunts mostly on the ground, and he's killed several on the ground. He got a nice 8-point out of Iowa on the ground this year on public, and he killed a real nice 11-point 160-inch buck in North Dakota on the ground. So I've kind of, watching my brother and watching other guys hunting on the ground, I started hunting on the ground more. So if something like that, if it's just a small tree, I can kind of just get a little bit of brush in front of me, a little bit of cover, and get good background and hunt on the ground now.
So other than that setup, like with the cover, does it change anything? I mean, do you feel like you can? Does it change the way that you look at like sign or the areas? Like, are you getting closer into those bedding areas? Are you pushing a little bit further in? I mean, how are you setting up?
No, I don't think I would. I would push in. I mean, because normally, even if there's a tree with a stand, I get a stand or a saddle in. I'm trying to get the closest I can, no matter what. I mean, we're definitely bow hunting, trying to sneak in there, and sometimes you fail and you jump them. you get too close, I just figured if you're too far back, you're out of the game, I've heard a lot of guys say, you got to be in that circle. And I've always just kind of took that to heart, get in that circle and get an arrow in them.
And what's the circle? I mean, because that's what happened to me on that deer this year. If I would have been one tree further, but I was 52 yards away from the edge of
But
the
you was
brush.
hunting for a tree.
Yeah, yeah, I
You
was.
was hunting for a tree, and you ended up jumping them. Uh, if you was sitting on the ground, you could have probably, you know, had a good background tree or some a little bit of brush in front of you, cleared out just real quietly and sat up. If you kind of knew where he was bedded, or if you had the sign in front of you and you weren't looking around for a tree, you could probably find that little area and just get set up on them. Without keep on going looking for that right tree
Right.
to get in. I mean, there's so many scenarios that probably you could go through, but I mean, um, ground hunting, I like it. I've shot, like I said, I shot 2 bucks on the ground this year. It's actually a blast to hunt on the ground. To do it. I just you got to be a little more stealthier, I think, though, and about it, because I mean, especially when you're pulling your bow back or trying try to find that right tree in the background. Sometimes I try to, if I don't got something in front of me, I'll grab a couple limbs real quick and put in front of me, break me up a little bit, as quiet as I can.
Yeah. So with that, what bow are you shooting right now, and what is your setup?
I got a Bowtech Realm,
Realm.
and with it's a one site. I used to use like multiple sites, but over the years it seems like my eyes are blending in a little bit with the sights, so I ended up switching to one pin, adjustable
Mm-hmm.
sight with FMJ Easton arrows and stuff.
Are you using fixed blade broadheads or mechanicals?
No, I use them Rex broadheads Matt Taggart's started making. I don't know if you heard of them.
I've heard of them. I haven't seen them. I'm not super familiar.
Yeah, the Rex broadheads. He makes them. They're a mechanical broadhead, uh, kind of like a Rage, but they have a muzzy tip to it, the top of an old muzzy tip,
Okay.
and then they have like it's not a slip cam, it's actually a spring loaded. I mean, it's like a heavy duty spring, so when they hit, the blades come down and the spring pushes it down.
Okay.
Um, they slip down, but it's spring holds them there. So it's like when they go open, they're held open. They cannot move, can't shut back, or anything like that.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you had good success with them. Obviously, you killed 4 bucks and
Yeah,
six.
yeah, 4 bucks and a doe with it. I ended up wounding a giant in Kansas with one, but uh, I had him at 2 yards and on the ground. And when he jumped the fence in front of me, I took I had it right on him. He kind of flared back on me, and all at once, I was shooting all at the same time, and I hit him in the loins.
I feel like John's 2 yards away from me right now, and I'm like, I can't even imagine a giant at fucking 2 yards.
I swear to God, I could have actually grabbed a hold of his antlers. I rattled him in and stuff. He was on the downwind side of a doe bedding area, and I was just hunting on the ground and just kind of kept going, bouncing around, slowly bouncing around, looking for cruising bucks, cruising on the downwind side of bedding areas that I thought would be bedding areas, and ended up seeing them and routing them right over to me. And he jumped the fence right in front of me. And I figured he was going to stop, as he was running to me. But Kansas is like no other. It's like nothing that you ever seen before, because you can rattle in bucks, grunt in bucks. I mean, there's the guys out there, they say, oh, there's pressure. Well, I drive around only seeing one truck today. So these bucks don't get pressured. A lot of these Kansas guys that do hunt, they hunt a lot of field edges. They don't hunt inside the bedding. And I think I took my tactics hunting aggressively out to Kansas, and was my second year hunting Kansas, and capitalized every time I've been out there in a hurry.
Nice.
So yeah.
Well, I think, I alluded to it at the beginning that, you might have another podcast with my buddy there, but we're going to have to get you back on just on that. I think taking, Michigan tactics or, pressured tactics to out of state hunting, because that's something I wanted to get into, but man, we're coming up on 2 hours. So, I mean, I think we've brought kind of got some great information on this one. And I really, really do appreciate, you coming on here and kind of, I mean, for a quiet guy, kind of stepping out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, it was. I didn't know if I wanted to do it, because I'm not much of a talker. I can talk to friends and stuff and everything, but I'm not. I wouldn't say I would would be like a good talker and a motivational speaker, I would say, type guy. It was definitely like I say, it's hard to explain for me, and to something that I would look at as a new hunter would look at probably totally different.
Right.
But I was there, I just think I just went out there and did it. I didn't have my dad was a hunter. He taught me, some stuff, but rubs and scrapes and that kind of stuff. But just getting out there is probably the best thing to do. Get out there and just figure it out.
Well, we appreciate it. I think that's kind of all we got for this evening. If you want to stay on the line, I'm just going to wrap this up here. I think that's all we got. So.